All right. So managing things in terms of designing out your library space, and we'll get into that in a different session. I think that there's really some important considerations to have up front. I like to think about safety first, having things like extension cords, lamps, clamps, ladders close to your checkout station. The last thing you want is for someone to say, okay, I really should grab an extra clamp or an extra extension cord, but I don't want to move to the back of the line. It's already 11:45 on a Saturday and I got to get this project going. So I'm just going to skip it and I'll make it work, because that's really can be a dangerous situation. Move those things forward. Having signage, large clear signage available, helping people to get oriented in that space. I know I walk into a Home Depot or a Lowe's or even a Ace Hardware, and it takes me a couple minutes to get oriented and to just take some deep breaths and not be overwhelmed by just everything that's there. And I'm pretty familiar with those spaces. So just remember that a tool library can be an overwhelming experience if you're not really deeply embedded and involved in it. So having things like that, using color to break up space, can be helpful. Develop kind of a spatial awareness. It helps. The self-sufficiency here is that if you are not grabbing things off of shelves for people, then they're going to be getting it themselves. You want to make that easy for them to find it going out and coming back in. You want them to be able to put their tools back where they belong so that they end up where they need to be. Otherwise, it's a major time commitment, annually, quarterly, daily, maybe, to put things back where they belong. I like maps. I'm never going to tell anybody not to make maps. I've taught art classes on map making. So maps are helpful. Just a bit of fun advice. At Lentz, we have been working on a specific project to develop a language-free navigation system. We have over 70 languages that are spoken within our community, and we really wanted to make our space open and accessible to everyone. And so we've developed a system that uses images in order to differentiate where tools should be. It also helps to have these placards and these cards in those spaces in case we're out of a tool. So you're not searching endlessly through what can seem like a somewhat disorganized at times library to try and find the thing that you know should be somewhere. So we have those things. There's also some other elements of that system. And if anybody's interested in using a system like that or developing a system like that, feel free to reach out. All of these assets were designed with a Creative Commons license, so they are available. But I'm also happy to have a conversation and discuss it a little bit more. And then hopefully nobody decided to come to the session because they wanted to learn about software, because I'm not going to talk a lot about software. And this is why, because in Portland, we have a tool called toollibrarian.net, was developed by a community member. And it's a great system. It's as robust as we need it to be, but it's a closed loop system and it's not available. It's going to be discontinued in 2038. So I'm just not the person to talk about that. I encourage you to reach out to your peers and reach out to some of these companies. There's great out of the box options with MyTurn, LendEngine, some other ones. I know both the Chicago Tool Library and PVD Things down in Providence have developed their own systems. And my understanding is that they're both open to helping people get onboarded on maybe using those systems or developing something similar. Software is important. You're going to be using it. You're going to be using it frequently. No software that I've ever experienced in any of my professional capacities has all the solutions. Definitely do some research. If you've done some research, please share it. If you have strong opinions or improvements, please do share those with me and with everyone else in the community. It's important, but it's not everything. And then once you have these things and you've been working with them, you want to be able to keep them. You want to be able to keep them operational. This is the biggest question that people get the first time I say a tool library. What's a tool library? They just assume everybody's going to walk off with all your tools. It's really pretty rare. In my experience, it's almost entirely by accident if tools disappear. I think the statistic that I have heard librarians say is that it's less than 10%. And that feels high to me in my experience. I do think tool loss recovery is something you want to plan for, because it's usually not malicious. There's lots of things that can happen in people's lives. Maybe they have some kind of a life crisis. Could be a transportation issue. maybe they just can't come in on days that you're open anymore. Maybe it's been 6 weeks or 6 months since their schedule changed, and they are afraid of bringing it back because they now owe you a $45 fine. There is also occasionally people will say they misunderstood their responsibilities. That is a real possibility. Tool libraries are a new thing. I think even book libraries, people don't always return things very promptly, and it's not very helpful to have a very heavily fine-based punitive system. What works really well for us in terms of trying to get those tools back as quickly as possible for the community is to practice restorative practices. As soon as you recognize that a tool has not come back, you want to communicate early, politely, be forgiving of fines and forgiving of the mistake. Understanding again, people's lives are complicated. And so just trying to be patient and respectful. Try to offer pickup alternative hours for drop off if that's possible. And again, emphasize tool recovery is the priority, not payment or punitive action.